Welcome to the Woodwork podcast. Please leave us a review on the social media platform, Spotify, Apple Music, whatever it is you're listening to. Want to get to 500 reviews? There'll be a nice worldwide giveaway. So today, Jerry is joining us for the first time as a co-host. We've had him on many times before. So welcome, Jerry.
Thank you very much, Paul. I'd also like to introduce a friend of mine who I've newly met on Instagram, and he's also come to visit in the farm. Jubal, please take it away.
Hey, how are you? I'm Jubal Prevatte. I'm an American, just moved over here about 6 months ago. I'm a carpenter. I've been a carpenter most of my life, and I'm mostly doing a lot of wood turning and furniture work is what I do. In fact, right behind me, you can see some of the stuff that I make. But that's kind of the extent of it. Right now, I'm building a kitchen for someone, but I pretty much just do what I feel like doing these days. So
I think the first question is, Jubal, how many hats do you own?
Well, I own. I guess you could have brought them all up. I brought this. I put this one on just for you, Jerry. This is my best hat. Made by John Fish of Folklore Hat Company in Portland, Oregon. Handmade hat. I have 3 of his, and I've got 5 other hats. So that's kind of my thing. I started wearing hats a few years ago, and I can't get away from them.
I like that
Lovely
fedora.
hat.
That is a really nice fedora. Look at the lining on the inside.
I know, it's an incredible lining. Incredible craftsman. He's an incredible person. Kind of been the story of my life is surrounding myself with people who know how to make things. I'll take it off for now since we're inside.
And yet here you are on the podcast with us. That just doesn't work. So you've had the fortunate. So you met Jerry down on his farm, I believe.
Yeah. I've met him in person. I actually reached out to him when I was planning on moving over here. So I moved over here last April, but knowing I was coming over, I just kind of looked for anybody who was doing something cool on Instagram over here to just reach out to other people. Saw his thing, and as soon as I could, once I get settled over here, I drove out there and saw the farm. And I've been out there, I think, 3 or 4 times altogether. Driving loads of wood back to my little workshop in Worthing.
I've made you a little stash.
Good. I've now got people like who are lining up to go out there with me. So I'm gonna have to rent a bigger van, and come out with some people. So a bunch of people want to come out and see it.
That's really cool. No, I think that's a nice way of doing it, because I suppose the beauty of it is, in effect, it creates community, and that's just one of the decent kind of, I guess, byproducts that Instagram can kind of do. But yeah, it's really nice. Thanks, man.
Yeah, and I think that is the beauty of Instagram, social media can be so divisive and dividing, but if you pay attention to it, it builds community. It really does. It can bring people together, which is a wonderful thing.
Oh, the one question I do have is, I was thinking today what questions I should ask you, but one question I do have is, how did you go from construction to wood turning?
Oh my goodness! It's just the short story, and I can go into a longer one if you want. The short story was that I've always been a woodworker. I grew up in the woods. I've always worked with my hands. I've always made things, and as I was just exhausted with being a builder, being a contractor, and doing big construction, I was building up my furniture business, which has always been a sideline for me. I was doing more and more furniture and more custom stuff. And while I had been shopping out all of my turning work to a friend in Oregon, I just decided to bring some in-house. And I had my shop manager for his early Christmas present. I gave him the company card and said, "Go buy us a lathe." And they went out and bought a lathe, and we started turning things. And it was mostly just to supplement the work that I was doing, because I was moving more toward furniture. And that was it. I started playing around a little bit on it, getting better at it. In the background of all that, I was sick of being a builder. I just didn't want to be a builder anymore and deal with all the other stuff. So at the end of it was, what really turned me into a bowl turner was in the January or February of 2021, an ice storm blew through Portland, Oregon, and knocked down tons of trees. And Portland, like most of the U.S., all the power is above ground. So when trees go down, it takes out power. So the city was without power, some parts of the city for a week. Almost everybody in the city lost power. But trees were down everywhere. And so I started, I had my chainsaw in my truck, and I'd drive around, I'd cut a piece of a tree I saw down, I'd take it to my shop, turn a bowl. The next day or 2 days later, I would put it on the person's porch with a little note. I hope, just saying, like, sorry you lost your tree. I hope this is something to help you remember it by. There's grand old trees in the city.
That's a nice gesture, that is. Very nice gesture to go around with that sort of thing.
Well, exactly. It was fun. It was a thing. I called it bowl bombing. So I would just, make bowls and deliver them with the note. And I started getting requests from people saying things like they'd get in touch with me to thank me and say, oh, my kids played in that tree 30 years ago when we moved in here. Can I get 3 more to give them for Christmas? Take all the wood, do whatever you want. And things like that. That was the house I was raised in. My parents, I want to give them a bowl or whatever. So that kind of sparked something in me. And I've always had an affinity for trees. I love, I grew up in the woods. The importance of urban trees, all that stuff. We could go into that at a different point. But seeing all these trees down, people need to know how important trees are, especially in an urban setting. And that kind of was why I started turning. And it really did feed back that way. But all the markets I did in Portland, when I was selling bowls, I could tell the story of every bowl. I could ask you, what part of the city are you from? Well, I've got a bowl from a tree that was right down the street from you. The whole idea was just to kind of keep people aware of what goes on around them in the city.
That brings it back to a bit like the Providence that we spoke about in the past with Jerry, because obviously Jerry's very into his forestry side of things and maintaining and all that. And we've spoke about Providence in the past, haven't we, Jerry, about you saying about, pretty much to a point where every slab in your mill has come from which tree and what part of your land, and knowing where the provenance of that tree. I mean, you've taken that one step further there, Jubal, haven't you? The fact of, you've made a bowl out of that tree was on that person's front yard or whatever.
Exactly. And now I'm doing it with wood from Jerry. So if I make something, I could say, oh, this came from, out here. And I've gotten some wood from an estate. I can't remember which estate you got it from, the walnut you gave me. I've sold 1 or 2 pieces from that.
Nice.
Yes. So I enjoy that idea of knowing where something is from. I think it helps connect people to the country. It helps connect people to life when they know this is where that came from. That makes something special of it. It makes it, when they see a tree, when they go out to Devon and they're, this is maybe where that bulb was from. I can even tell them, go call this guy. He's the guy who provided the wood. I think that's an important part of everything.
Well, how's the markets going for you? Are they doing well?
They're going okay. They're not great. It's an adjustment. I did a pop-up shop with a woman who's a ceramicist who I met at a market, and I'm getting some traction. But it's kind of realizing when I was doing this pop-up with her, we were together for 3 days in the shop, getting to know, hanging out. But people who came in knew her, have seen her stuff because she's been in Hove for a decade doing pottery. And there were people who, I got one of your bowls for Christmas last year, so I didn't know who made it. So it's that sort of thing that, I think it's going to take me a while to get to that point. So I'm trying to figure it out. Meanwhile I'm doing a few other things.
Do you find it's is it? I'm only assuming, but until you've made a name, is that particular maybe to wood turning, where the artistry or the artist before they've made a name cannot gather a wider customer base, or I don't really understand.
I think so. I mean, as in so many things in life, it's in that sort of realm. It's all there's so much. It's marketing. It's how do you get who knows you and who who sees you, and often like in wood turning and many other crafts, everyone sees someone who's not as good as they are, but they're really famous. How come they're famous? And well, they just hit the spot at the right time. They knew the right person. They talked to the right person. That was it. It's hard to. Everybody has an uncle or a great uncle who turned bowls, or their brother's, wife's, cousin turned bowls. So everyone's got wood bowls all in their house. So there's nothing that differentiates me from them, really. And everyone has them. So it's, if you can create a desire for your products, that's great. But if not, you just kind of, I don't turn to sell. I turn because I like to turn. And because wood turning for me is bowl turning and form turning. That's it's almost a meditation. You're just there, and you're in front of the machine. The wood is moving. You're in contact with the wood, and you're just in the moment. And that's why I do it. And I end up with bowls, and I end up with more bowls than I know what to do with, because I do this. And at some point, I'll give them away because I have too many bowls. It's if I were making these as a product, I'd be more worried about it. But they'll find their voice eventually, I think.
So, is there a big wood turning community where you are?
There is. Well, there's a wood turning communities everywhere. If anyone's interested in wood turning, you can find a local wood turners club. You can do whatever. I've joined a wood turners club once I moved over here. And I'm not a joiner. I don't join things. So it's the first club I've ever joined in my life. But I wanted to meet wood turners over here. But they're everywhere. There are tons of people who do it, in all crafts, pretty much. You can find people around who do what you do. And everyone finds their own way as well. Like everyone finds how they want to turn it, what they want to turn, and what they want to make through that process. And the beauty of it is there's so many different versions of these things being done.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've actually I've had a couple of turners on so far over the course of the last year. And like we had, first one was John, and he was a greenwood turner, so he was using the old type of string and
right.
paddle. So, that was a very interesting eye-opener for me. It's not something I even knew about. I thought it was something you'd go and see at a craft fair type thing. It's a bit of a medieval type sort of...
Yeah.
That sort, a bit of a sideshow type thing. But no, it's an absolutely... John runs courses and all that. And then we have David on, who's a good friend of mine, and he likes to do a lot of the epoxy type pieces. So he does obviously wood and epoxy. He makes and he turns them into some amazing pieces. And then you got people like Kate, another good friend of mine. She does these vases which have zips coming down with them, so it looks like the vase has been split, but the zip comes up, and it's quite phenomenal. What also is very funny, I am going to get this in. So I think it was the first time we had Jerry on, which again it's coming up to about a year, but not far off a year since we started doing the podcast now. And Jerry actually said he detests and he hates all wood turners. They are the bane of his life.
Yes.
Now that is on.
I know it.
I'll find out what episode it is. I'm going to look now to see what episode that was on, because it made me laugh when I looked at your page. You've got some beautiful pieces on your page as well, Jabul, because I had a quick look at your page. Obviously, it's not... This is someone... Jabul is someone that Jerry has organised as a guest, because with him being his first one, I thought, let him sort out the guest, because it's the right sort of thing to do. And I'm just going to go back now and see if I can find the... So it was episode 12 that the first time I had Jerry on, which was just over 6 months ago.
Well,
it's one of our most popular ones actually so far that we've had.
I'll just throw it out there. Jubal actually reinforced my point. So when he came to visit, I showed him all of the wonderful boards, which of course they did. Jubal did say they were quite nice, but when we migrated over to the log yard, that's when it started to ice
exactly.
up.
It's funny. I've got a really good friend in Portland, Mark, who is a miller as well. He does chainsaw and Alaska milling, and he does more than that now. But he's a dear friend of mine, Windwood _LLC. Give him a look. But you know, wood turners all want him to cut his slabs into chunks so he can turn them, and he hates wood turn. Doesn't hate them, but the same sentiment. So I'm used to it. I'm like, leave that thing whole. Just give me a log. Don't mill it. Just give it to me cheap. How's that? You know?
Yeah, just found it hard easy.
Exactly. But yeah. I'm aware of that. I try to be good about it. So, you know, but we do scrounge as wood turners.
It's the rummaging. The rummaging
Exactly.
is just it, because there's portions which are just so neglected of the farm, but a wood turner will find it. I guarantee it.
Well, it's the thing. Like I know what I want to turn. Like I used to, my friend Mark is like, don't prep any wood. Don't make blanks. The hunk of log you don't want, just let me have it. Like I will do all my prepping and you know, I'll rip it in half and I'll do my own chainsaw because I know what I want to make. And in general, it's not something out of a slab. Like I will use slabs. I think I'm coming up to grab the slab a London plane with you soon, Jerry.
Yeah.
And I'm going to make bowl blanks out of it and platter blanks, and I'm going to distribute those to some friends in the Wood Turners Club and stuff like that. But for the most part, I turn green wood. So I use a lathe. I'm not a pole lathe, you know, foot stomping turn of it. But yeah. I almost for my bowls and my forms, I primarily turn green wood. And I like turning it green because it cuts really easily. A lot of people will then, you know, leave it thick, let it dry, and twist a little bit, and then return it so it's nice and round. Whereas mine, you know, here, this is what I like. You know, things like this. So you turn it.
It looks a bit like a poppadom to a point, doesn't it? You're getting like the
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Now I know I can serve in this. But that's what
it's
I
nice,
do.
It's really nice, though. It's different.
Exactly. You know, things like this. Like this.
What is that?
This is a big ash kind of it was a weird like burr.
That's cool.
A weird lump. I've got a stack of them. A tree surgeon gave me.
I mean, it won't be, but it almost looks a bit like African blackwood or something similar, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Sort
of... And I blackened it with ink, but you know, it's just I like the wood. I
like that. That's really nice.
Yeah, and obviously it's got the imperfections. Because obviously people haven't got the visual aid that we have talking to each other. Because
right.
This is an audio.
Oh yeah, that's true. I guess I should. Yeah.
But it's got some imperfections in it, and you sort of like you've highlighted them, haven't you, as part of the piece?
It's not even highlighting it. And I start sounding pompous and arty when I start talking like this. But
Jerry's talking
for me,
wood turning shit.
I know, crap, man. But I kind of see I explain it. My job is to let the wood speak. You know. There's no imperfections in the wood. The wood is just beautiful. And what my job is to, as imperfectly as I do it, try to show the perfection of the wood, to try to show people what the wood wants to be. And that's kind of the way I see it. I talk to a lot of wood turners who frequently say, "Oh, that thing fought me all the way." I'm like, well, then if you're fighting it, you're not doing what it wants to do. Yeah, I don't fight things. I don't. I do. I say I don't because we all do. But when I really want to do something and the wood doesn't want to do it, I just have to back up and kind of breathe for a minute and say, okay, it's my ego. I'm trying to force something. I'll just make something and let it be what it wants to be. Because again, I'm not making a product.
Yeah, you get the product. Your product is actually a byproduct of making the product.
Exactly. Yeah, it's process. It's not product is what I always say. So
yeah.
So also the other thing that I was lucky about, having started this in Portland, Oregon, and knowing a lot of people in the tree business already, I have so much. I collect wood like crazy. So in my workshop here in Worthing, I've got, you know, a lot. I've got like half of my parking yard is full of logs and stuff now already. So I turn when I can, as much as I can, but I don't care if it if I'm almost done and I do something wrong and it blows up. I don't care if I turn it and I put it down and I come back the next day and it's split into two. I don't care, because
that's always the risk with green as well, isn't it? That it can,
yeah.
because obviously it's the same thing when like you're doing a milling process. If you sort of like you do your first process, the milling, like you split up your log, you leave it
Right.
overnight because it will move overnight. So if you went ahead and milled it up to four sides, you come back to it next day and it looks like it's come out of the Home Depot store, doesn't it? Because it's going to be bent to hell.
Exactly, and yeah, I'm lucky that again that I'm kind of like, well, when I'm turning, when I'm actively just turning, I make so much that I don't care if half of them don't come out, because it's, most of the time I like it, and I don't use epoxies and fillers and things like that, because I want it to be wood and just wood.
Do you apply the finish on your products after the fact? Obviously, when you've finished it, so to speak, inverted commas, do you use a product on it to seal it, finish it, or?
I do. In general, I use either straight mineral oil, which, depending on, sometimes you want to slow down the drying of some things, so the faster it dries, the more likely it is to move rapidly, and that's where you get cracks and stuff like that. So I will soak it in mineral oil. Like I'll turn something green, I'll get it to what I want, or when I'm done with it, and I'll take it off the lathe and I just dunk it in mineral, because I rarely sand after that point. So I get it where I want it and that's it. And I dunk it in mineral oil and I let it sit, and that just slows the drying down. And what I tell myself is, what I think happens is as the water's leaving, the mineral oil is soaking in, because mineral oil doesn't dry.
That makes sense to the point, yeah.
And so it keeps the cells a bit nourished. And then when it's all set to go, I give it a nice wipe down, and I use what I'm using right now is Par's beeswax oil. So it's just a mix of oil and wax with some vitamin E or some of this, some of that. Everybody, you can find any like cutting board oil and wax will do. Lots of people make their own and sell it. Lots of people make their own and use it. So yeah, I'll finish, but that's all I use. I don't use hard finishes other than wax. I don't, some people will lacquer or use a poly on their work, and I see anything more than just the wax is again something else between me and the wood, the end user and the wood, and I don't like that separation. I want it to be as close and as real as possible.
So do you make, apart from obviously you said you mainly like making bowls, and that's what you, I mean, you got some beautiful bowls behind you, but
yeah,
do you do like mugs and like, is that lamp something you've made?
Yeah, so the lamp, where is it? Right there. That's one of my lamps. So those I've made these lamps for a while. I've a few of them around the room here. That cool thing about the lamp, I have to tell you, is my partner Wendy started playing with natural dyeing. So she's dyeing cloth with natural products. This is dyed with, let me see, this was, so this lampshade was dyed using walnut bark from the walnut from your place, Jerry. Nice. I've got one over here. This was willow, from some willow I had that I turned. So she's hand dyeing linen and silk and making lampshades.
Which will complement, and it complements whatever you've turned really well, doesn't it?
Exactly, yeah. And so, and the good thing is, using the bark that I bring home from the logs that I'm using to turn. So it's kind of also
it's waste, effectively, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. So it's the stuff that would just be, you throw it away, and it would become whatever you do it with bark. But she's using it.
The bark it ends up on the workshop floor, then brushed up and put in the bin, doesn't it?
Exactly. So it's it's very, very full circle, I guess, is kind of what it is. Anyway, so I make the lamps. She's making the shades now. This one's walnut with, I think she used like an iron acetate white to kind of do these gray streaks. Anyway, so I do things like that. I do production turning. So I make I'll do stair parts, or I just finished up some stair parts for someone, a bunch of pickets or a bunch of, spindles and a newel post, and I'm doing, reproducing someone has a broken spindle from an old house, so I'm reproducing that for them.
That is a way, especially with spindles as well, obviously.
Yeah.
With your, after about 2 years of anything being in production, it's in a different factory or whatever. They don't match, and especially if you go to like one of the early, or even before early 1900 houses, or even anything before that, you're never going to get a spindle anywhere near close. And your only option is to take it to someone that turns to have it matched. It's your only option.
Exactly, it is, and that's kind of, I started turning more. I turned this bit when I was young as a kid, but I started turning more to make things for my furniture. And now, what I've learned is everything that I do turning informs everything else I do turning. So if I'm doing spindle work and I'm using skew work and I'm getting good at that, that in turn speaks to my bowl and my form turning. It's all a process, and so it's all you're related to the wood. So I like doing production work. What's that?
It's a progression as well, because it's the same thing with all joinery, woodworking, or whatever you want to call it. That even though it's how you apply a certain skill, you apply different to another task, and that becomes a new sort of skill or way of doing things in that instance. And then you can take that to your next furniture piece or your next build or whatever it is you're doing, and you apply that skill in a new way, and that's how you change your way of how your piece looks, which gives you a new product or a new process. And it's
exactly, and that's what I love about it. That's what I love about being a carpenter. That's what I've loved about building, is that those are the parts that I love. Is every time I do something, I learn a better way of doing it, or even a different way of doing it, and it's kind of, that's the way most of us learn stuff is, I don't know about you guys, but when I was young and starting out, you get hired by someone and they say, "Hey, do you know how to do this?" "Yeah, I can do that." And they, "Okay, I'll be back in 4 hours." And they leave, and you're like, "What the hell am I going to do?" And so you figure it out, and you make it up. And the more times you do that, the less you worry about having to figure it out.
So I got a question. Jubal, if say someone is watching this and they are a complete novice to wood turning, what are 3 recommendations that you would give them?
Number one, don't go to Jerry's Wood, because he'll bust your balls.
Exactly. No, first go to Jerry's and look for the cheapest piece of crap you can find, and have them cut it up for you. No, wait, I tell you, if you wanted to try it, I mean, I don't see. That's where there are wood turning clubs around. There's tons of YouTube videos. Go search Instagram for wood turners. You can find things to do. One of the benefits of having been a woodworker my entire life is when I decided I was going to turn, I just did it. I didn't take lessons. I didn't, I watched maybe half of a few YouTube videos, because I just can't sit there and watch someone do something.
No, I agree.
And so I'd get up and do it. It's like, okay, well, there's a tip, and I'd figure this out. Why isn't that working? And then maybe I would watch another clip. Oh, that's what I'm doing. And so I'm fairly self-taught. I have the benefit of having had a relationship with wood my entire life, so it's no big deal for me to pick up a different tool and to get a different sort of product, because I'm, it's all in the same thing. I cut down my first tree when I was 10 or 11 years old, with a chainsaw. I took down my first, 50-foot oak. So I've been around it my entire life. So there's no, it's kind of, but if you've never been around wood, it's not difficult. Wood turning is not complex, and it's not hard. It takes if you do anything enough times, you'll get okay at it. And so you find a way to do it. Find a club. If you want to try turning, find a wood turning club. Look on Instagram. Find a wood turner in your area and say, "Hey, well, what do you know? How do I learn this?" And I've given lessons. Most wood turners will give a little bit, or recommend someone who can give them a lesson or whatever.
I don't know. I don't know if this is true, but I've been told it's meant to be, or the lathe is meant to be one of the entry kind of machines into a workshop. I don't know how much of that's true. Is that right?
The entry, I don't know how, if it's different you know, with trades being different here, and the concept of a, you know,
See, it's interesting
yeah,
because I mean, I've never used a lathe. I mean, I've been a joiner now for 24 years ish, give or take. I've never used a lathe, and wasn't until recently. Lathes, I mean, all tools are dangerous if not treated with the correct respect that they command and deserve, without a doubt. But like lathes have always scared the shit out of me, like
Oh,
properly.
and me. And me.
But the funny part is, I saw a demonstration by Kate at an event, Kate, a crafty lass, one of my friends, and she just made it look so frigging easy. I mean, that's because she's good at it, don't get me wrong. But just the way it was, and the way because she does do lessons, as you say, you know, and she's part of all sort of clubs, she does demos at tool shows and all sorts. It's just the way that she sort of shows you, you're like, that's not actually as bad or as scary as you think it is. And for me, it doesn't help when you go watch someone like David or Jeff Mack on YouTube. And basically, they just got a great big frigging root out of a tree, stuck it on the lathe, and it's all going in every direction that miles an hour. Because they do that for clicks because it looks dangerous. Well, it is dangerous if you don't know what you're doing. So obviously, if you go and stick a skew chisel in that as it's flailing round, you're going to end up in A&E. So, but I do think that for entry point, I would say that a lot of like woodworkers as a hobbyist, say that more the hobbyist, I would say that a lot of people go down the lathe or wood turning route as an entry into woodworking. I wouldn't say as a joiner in the UK, it is actually a normal thing because it's almost like a side special. It's almost like a specialist alongside a joining shop, if you know what I mean.
It
really is specialist. Yeah, it is definitely specialist because I know of quite a few wood turners, but when you, it's hard to explain without sounding like a dickhead. But when you get pictures,
when has that stopped you before, Jerry?
No, but when you get pictures of what they've turned, and there's a significant difference. There is a difference because I mean I haven't exactly got the eye, but I haven't when you do come across something that you like or something that is appealing, then you it would be safe to assume that they're pretty bloody good. But that with wood turning, for the most part, I think it's I don't know whether or not it's the fascination about it is crazy because I would like to try it because I think you're right. There is this element and idea that you can kind of get into a rhythm and you can kind of get into this little weird zone, but I don't know if it's going to be an easy thing to master. That's for sure.
The beauty of it is that you should never master it. You just get better. That's kind of the beauty of it. That's the unless you're there's some production turners, Dave Dalby and Steve Jones and who are masters at what they do. Yes, there are those people, but everyone else, you're just getting better. That's all. And for me, it's funny to hear Jerry, who's swinging chainsaws, to talk about a lathe like it's dangerous. Yes, I'm more likely to get hit by a bus walking home from my workshop than I am seriously hurting myself with a lathe. A router, just a handheld router, is way more dangerous.
See again, that's free. Like routers don't bother me, and router tables don't bother me because I mean I've been using them for so many years. But if you walk that to a spindle molder, which is just a big ass. I've used one back in day when it was in the workshop, but it was like 22 or 23 or whatever. Had that going, used it once. Never fucking again am I using a spindle molder. I don't give a shit. It's not.
There's big and powerful, man. There's machines that were made to just remove material. Those are terrifying. That's a spindle molder, which is why routers don't scare me. But that's people come in, they're terrified of like the table saw. I'm like, it's just a table saw. It's the router. It's the jointer. Holy crap! The jointer. You could fall, and that would just kind of eat your hand as you fall into it, just like a molder, like a spindle molder.
Again, jointers don't.
See, there's no, you don't cut something off with a jointer.
So
to me, that's the danger.
I'm conscious of the time, Jubal, but I just want to get a few questions in. I want to learn more about you, actually. How have you found your transition into the UK? Has it been good? Has it been bad? As an American that's come in, what are any polarity differences?
It's funny. It's like the language. There is a language difference, first of all, and you joke about the things like, we say pants, like, pants are different in the U.S. Pants are my trousers, not my knickers. They're, we don't wear jumpers in the U.S. Like, what the hell is a jumper? It's a sweater, for God's sake. So there's things like that. That I have to say that the biggest, and Wendy gets so crazy at me about whatever. The grocery shopping terrifies me here, and I used to do a lot because I like it. I think that's become like the focus of all my like moving anxiety, because everything's different. Like, I go to the grocery store, I can't find anything because it's a different size, it's a different shape. I went looking for pasta, this plain old pasta sauce. In the U.S., it's a quart jar. Here, it's a pint. But I was walking by all these pint jars looking for the quart-sized pasta. So it's those sort of things that are hard that get me.
Yeah, the little daily thing. I mean, yeah. I get
all this.
Yeah, I speak to a lot of Americans, have a lot of American contacts, through social. And you say, yeah, there's definitely a language barrier, 100%. But like, I spent 8 months out in Austria 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And but the Bieler, you go to the Bieler, which is like the Aldi or the Lidl or their equivalent. And as you say, you're like,
where is that?
That pasta's not in the sort of pasta packet that I want my pasta packet in. And that jar of sauce, it's got a green lid. I want a red lid. It's like...
And you just don't see it. It's my first time I was like, okay, I'm going. I took a big grocery list, and I went to the store, and I swear to God, I had to ask someone to find like 70% of the things. Do you know where this is? I think I spoke to every single employee of the Waitrose down the street from us. I was like, where is it? I don't know. But yeah, I get.
Every time they see you walk in, they duck behind the end of the old fork.
Oh, it's him again. It's that stupid American. But the other thing, I love England. I'm really loving England. The English people have been, are wonderful. I'm incredibly happy being here. It's a joy, really.
Before you moved over, had you visited before, or how many times have you visited before you moved over?
I'd probably been here, visited about 5 times, since my partner is English, and so my first time over was about 10 or 11 years ago, not long after we started, dating. Came over. She had a work thing in London, so I came over with her, and I've been over a handful of times, so it wasn't completely new. I'd driven over here. At one point we did like a 7 or 8 day driving tour of the West, and so I drove all through that. So learning to drive over here wasn't that big of a deal, because I'd done it before. So, it wasn't, and it's not totally alien. I mean, it's, we speak the same basic language, but it's, but they're just different.
No,
going to a hard, going to
American, do we?
Oh my God, no, exactly.
English.
Go to a hardware store. Like, here's what I'm looking for. Like, what is this thing? What do you call this thing that I'm looking for? It does this and this, and when you do this, oh yeah, that's whatever. So
yeah, we do have a lot of different terms for the same product, for the same thing. We call them totally different things, don't we?
Exactly.
I can't think of an example, but yeah, we do have things. And of course, a big one would have been for you, no doubt, is moving to metric. I know we do have imperial here still, but we are
stay with feet and inches, Jubal. Stay with feet and inches.
I bought an old StartRite table saw, beautiful old English machine with the inset brass rule in the 2 different parts of it, and it is in feet and inches. So it was an old one, but I'm learning. I'm getting to the point I don't have to look at my phone and do the math when someone says, that's 100 millimeters. Like, I have no goddamn idea.
I do it. No, I do it.
You tell me
It's
tell me
crazy.
13 inches. I can picture it. I can picture 13 inches,
Yeah.
but I can't picture, I was like, I have no idea. Yeah, so it's
It is really
that's a
weird.
struggle.
No, it's all right. Don't worry. I'm totally with you. The forestry sector typically works in feet and inches. It's just, I don't know, joiners and carpenters. They like to be a bit fussy,
Exactly.
don't
Yeah. But I'm learning it slowly. I'm just learning it. I go to the local lumber yard. And I have to okay, I want it about this size. We grade wood differently in the U.S. We go by with wood dimensions for sawn lumber. We go by quarter, so it's 4/4, 5/4, 6/4, 8/4, 12/4.
6/4. That's an inch and a half. Oh, well, it's not.
Yeah,
but
yeah, exactly.
That's a totally different thing, guy.
So getting that, anyway, so it's it is a bit, it's different, but it's not bad. I'm learning it. I'm getting there. I've got my metric system, kind of figured out. I have no idea. Kilograms, I have no idea. Millimeters and meters and stuff I can get, but grams, I have no idea.
I'm sorry, my earplugs have just decided to die on me.
All right.
Oh, well, never mind.
Technology.
Well, yeah. I think as well that's a good time to call it a day today. It's been a nice change actually to normally when we have an American guest on, because of the EST or PST time zone differences, it's like 3 o'clock in the morning when I do an American version. So it has made it a bit of a nice change for that. If everyone can please don't forget to go leave us a review, Spotify, Apple Music, etc. If you want to get hold of us, you can get hold of me on my own personal social page or the Wood and Work podcast pages on all social media platforms, of course. Reach out to Jerry if you've got any other questions. And again, I will leave all the links to Jubal's page on the description down below. So go check out his work, give him a follow, like, share, etc., etc. So, yeah, thank you very much for joining us today. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you very much. I've had fun.
Okay. And, thanks, Jerry, for joining us as a co-host for the first time.
Yeah, it's been fun.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, everyone. And we shall catch you next week.